On December 15, 2025, at approximately 3:40 in the afternoon, 28-year-old Romy Reiner walked into her parents' Brentwood home and discovered a scene that would shatter one of Hollywood's most beloved families forever. This is the story of how the daughter of legendary filmmaker Rob Reiner found her parents murdered, and what we know about the 72 hours that led to one of the most shocking tragedies in entertainment history. The family released only one statement through their grief. It is with profound sorrow that we announce the tragic passing of Michele and Rob Reiner. We are heartbroken by this sudden loss, and we ask for privacy during this unbelievably difficult time. But to understand what Romy Reiner walked into that Sunday afternoon, we need to go back to the beginning. To understand who her father was, what her family had been struggling with for nearly 2 decades, and how a holiday party the night before would be the last time anyone saw Rob and Michele Reiner alive. Robert Norman Reiner was born on March 6, 1947, in the Bronx, New York, into what you might call Hollywood royalty. His father, Carl Reiner, was already becoming a legend, working on Sid Caesar's groundbreaking comedy shows alongside a young comedian named Mel Brooks. Rob didn't just grow up around show business. He grew up watching his father create it night after night with some of the greatest comedy minds of the 20th century. By the time Rob was in high school at Beverly Hills High, his best friend was Richard Dreyfuss. The entertainment industry wasn't something distant or aspirational for him. It was his daily reality. But nobody could have predicted the career he would build. In 1971, Norman Lear cast 24-year-old Rob Reiner as Michael Stivic on a new show called All in the Family. You know him as Meathead, the liberal son-in-law constantly battling with Archie Bunker. That role would earn him 2 Emmy Awards in 1974 and 1978, and make him one of the most recognizable faces on television. Years later, Rob would joke, "I could win the Nobel Prize and they'd write Meathead wins the Nobel Prize." But acting was just the beginning. In 1984, Rob Reiner made a film that essentially invented an entire genre. This is Spinal Tap, created the mockumentary format that comedians still use today. What followed was one of the most remarkable directorial runs in cinema history. In 1986, he made Stand By Me, his personal favorite, based on a Stephen King novella about 4 boys searching for a dead body. In 1987, The Princess Bride gave us a film now preserved in the National Film Registry, with lines that became part of our cultural language. In 1989, When Harry Met Sally became one of the greatest romantic comedies ever made, featuring a script by Nora Ephron and a scene in a deli that everyone remembers. In 1990, he directed Kathy Bates to an Oscar win in Misery. And in 1992, A Few Good Men was nominated for Best Picture and gave us the immortal line, "You can't handle the truth." This wasn't just a successful director. This was someone who could master comedy, romance, thriller, and drama with equal brilliance. He founded Castle Rock Entertainment in 1987, which would go on to produce Seinfeld, The Shawshank Redemption, and over 125 films. Rob Reiner's first marriage was to director Penny Marshall from 1971 to 1981. He adopted her daughter Tracy during that marriage. But it was on the set of When Harry Met Sally in 1989 that Rob met the woman who would become his wife and the mother of his 3 children. Michele Singer was a photographer working on the film. They married in May of 1989 in Hawaii, with 2 strangers serving as witnesses. Over the next 8 years, they would have 3 children: Jake, born in 1991, Nick, born in 1993, and Romy, born in 1997. From the outside, the Reiner family seemed to embody everything Hollywood dreams are made of: talent, success, activism, and love. Rob and Michele co-founded the I Am Your Child Foundation in 1997, championing early childhood development. In 1998, Rob led the campaign for California's Proposition 10, creating a 50-cent tobacco tax to fund children's programs. In 2008, the couple co-founded the American Foundation for Equal Rights, successfully challenging California's Proposition 8 same-sex marriage ban, a case that contributed to nationwide marriage equality in 2015. Rob was a lifelong Democratic activist, donating approximately $2.7 million to Democratic causes and candidates over his lifetime. He and Michele were close personal friends with Barack and Michelle Obama. Their children grew up alongside other Hollywood kids in what appeared to be an idyllic Los Angeles childhood. But inside that family, something had been breaking for a very long time. Nick Reiner's struggles began when he was just 14 years old. Addiction and mental health issues took hold of the middle Reiner child with a grip that wouldn't let go for the next 18 years. We know this not from gossip or speculation, but from Rob Reiner himself. In 2015, Rob and Nick did something extraordinary together. They co-wrote a semi-autobiographical film called Being Charlie about a young man's battle with addiction. It was Rob's way of processing his son's pain and Nick's way of confronting it publicly. The film didn't sugarcoat anything. It showed the relapses, the rehab centers, the broken promises, and the families that love their children but cannot save them from themselves. But the film's release didn't end Nick's struggles. According to the reports that emerged after the tragedy, those struggles continued right up until December 14, 2025. Nick had been living in the guest house on his parents' Brentwood property. He was 32 years old, still fighting battles that began when he was a child. The property where this all happened, the main house where Rob and Michele lived, and the separate guest house where Nick stayed, would become a crime scene that the Los Angeles Police Department would spend days processing. On the evening of December 13, 2025, Rob and Michele Reiner attended a holiday party at Conan O'Brien's home. These were the kind of gatherings that defined their social circle, entertainment industry friends celebrating the season, familiar faces, comfortable relationships. But that night, something happened. An argument occurred between Rob Reiner and his son Nick. We don't know the specific words that were exchanged. We don't know what triggered it. But multiple sources confirmed that the argument took place and that it was significant enough that people noticed. That was the last time anyone outside the family would see Rob and Michele Reiner alive. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner would later determine that Rob Reiner, 78 years old, and Michele Singer Reiner, 68 years old, died from multiple sharp force injuries in the early morning hours of December 14, 2025. The official causes of death were released to the public, along with the manner of death: homicide. It was approximately 3:40 p.m. on Sunday, December 15th, when Romy Reiner walked into her parents' home. She was 28 years old, the youngest of Rob and Michele's 3 children, and what she found would change everything. We can only imagine what ran through her mind in those moments. Did she call out for her parents? Did she notice something was wrong before she saw them? Did she freeze? Or did she immediately call for help? These are details that only Romy knows, details she will carry for the rest of her life. What we do know is that the police were called, and what had been a missing persons concern became a homicide investigation within minutes. The Los Angeles Police Department's homicide detectives arrived at the Brentwood address connected to one of Hollywood's most respected directors. By that evening, Nick Reiner had been arrested near the USC campus. The Los Angeles County District Attorney, Nathan Hochman, would file charges that included a special allegation that he personally used a dangerous and deadly weapon, a knife. The charges were 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, carrying a maximum sentence of life in prison without parole or the death penalty. The family that had been fighting to save Nick for 18 years would now watch as he faced charges for killing his own parents. The news broke like a shockwave through the entertainment industry. Christopher Guest and Jamie Lee Curtis, who had worked with Rob on This Is Spinal Tap, issued a joint statement. Christopher and I are numb and sad and shocked about the violent, tragic deaths of our dear friends Rob and Michele Singer Reiner. There will be plenty of time later to discuss the creative lives we shared. Mandy Patinkin, who played Inigo Montoya in The Princess Bride, said the word that came to mind was inconceivable, the famous line from their film together. He recalled, "Rob worked hard to try to get me the best human being I could be. He cared about my nature." Cary Elwes posted a photo of their director's chairs with just 2 words, "No words." Jerry O'Connell, who was just 12 years old when Rob directed him in Stand By Me, broke down on CBS Mornings. "Rob was like a father to me," he said through tears. "Everything I have is because of Rob Reiner." He remembered how Rob took him to lunch months after filming Wrapped. A gesture he didn't have to make, but one that showed who Rob was as a person. Kathy Bates won her Oscar for Misery under Rob's direction. She said, "He was brilliant and kind, a man who made films of every genre to challenge himself as an artist." She recalled the moment at the 1991 Oscars when her name was called. "I looked over and Rob was standing and he was just pounding his fists together going, yeah, yeah, yeah." Stephen King, whose novella became Stand By Me, wrote, "Wonderful friend, political ally, and brilliant filmmaker, including two of mine. Rest in peace, Rob. You always stood by me." Billy Crystal, Martin Short, Larry David, and Barry Levinson issued a joint statement. "There is no other director who has his range. From comedy to drama to mockumentary to documentary, he was always at the top of his game." But perhaps the most surprising tribute came from Jerry Seinfeld, who revealed, "Next to Larry David and George Shapiro, Rob Reiner had the biggest influence on my career. Our show would have never happened without him." Castle Rock Entertainment, the production company Rob founded, had produced Seinfeld and made hundreds of millions of dollars from the show that defined the 90s. And then there was the silence that spoke louder than any tribute. Mel Brooks, 99 years old, has not issued a public statement about Rob Reiner's death as of December 23, 2025. To understand why this silence is so profound, you need to understand the relationship between Mel Brooks and the Reiner family. Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner met in 1950 on Your Show of Shows. They created the legendary 2,000-year-old man comedy routines together, routines that defined American comedy for generations. They were best friends for 70 years. After both their wives passed away, Carl and Mel had dinner together every single night at Carl's Beverly Hills home. Every night, they would eat together, then watch Jeopardy! This wasn't an occasional tradition. This was every single night. Rob Reiner recounted the night his father died on June 29, 2020. Mel was leaving at the end of the night and he said, "Good night, Carl." And just as he was about to walk out the door, he heard a thud, and my dad just fell down. He was dead immediately. Mel Brooks was there for the last words Carl Reiner ever heard. Even after Carl's death, Brooks continued visiting the house for months, maintaining the ritual that had defined their friendship. Rob Reiner wasn't just his best friend's son. He was someone Mel had known literally since Rob was 2 years old. Someone he had watched grow up, become Meathead, become a director, become a legend in his own right. Fans have expressed concern for the 99-year-old Brooks, with one viral social media post noting, "Just realized 99-year-old Mel Brooks is going to wake up to the news about someone he has known since he was 2 years old and whose father was his best friend for 60 years. His silence may simply be the silence of a man who has lost too much, who is too old to process another tragedy, who has no words left for this kind of pain." Political leaders also paid tribute. Former President Barack Obama wrote, "Rob's achievements in film and television gave us some of our most cherished stories on screen. But beneath all of the stories he produced was a deep belief in the goodness of people." California Governor Gavin Newsom said, "Rob was the big-hearted genius behind so many of the classic stories we love. His boundless empathy made his stories timeless." Maria Shriver, who raised her children alongside the Reiners, said, "They were among my closest friends. I'm devastated, gutted, shocked, stunned. The funeral will be a private ceremony limited to family and closest friends." Sources indicate attendees will include Barack and Michelle Obama, Billy Crystal, and Larry David. An impromptu memorial following Jewish tradition was held the day after the deaths, organized by Albert Brooks, with Bill Hader and Conan O'Brien in attendance. Flowers have been placed at Rob Reiner's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at 6413 Hollywood Boulevard, located near his father Carl Reiner's star. Romy Reiner walked into her parents' home on December 15, 2025, and found a tragedy that no child should ever have to witness. She found her father, the man who directed some of the greatest films in American cinema, who fought for children's rights and marriage equality, who made the world laugh and cry and think. She found her mother, the photographer who became an activist, who raised 3 children, who built a life of purpose alongside the man she loved. And she found the end of a family that had been breaking in private for 18 years, while appearing whole to the world. Rob Reiner's final film, Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues, was released in September 2025, just months before his death. His last television appearance was on The Bear in 2025. He was 78 years old, still working, still creating, still believing in the power of storytelling to change hearts and minds. The charges against Nick Reiner carry a maximum sentence of life in prison without parole or the death penalty. The legal proceedings will continue. The memorial services will be held. The tributes will keep coming. But nothing will change what Romy Reiner saw that Sunday afternoon at 3:40 p.m. Nothing will bring back the parents she lost. Nothing will repair the family that shattered in the early morning hours of December 14, 2025. This is the tragedy of the Reiner family, a story of talent and activism, of struggle and addiction, of love and unimaginable loss. And at the center of it all is a daughter who found her parents, and a son who stands accused of killing them.